There's a truth every woman eventually discovers, and most discover it the hard way. You cannot both become yourself and also be universally approved. You cannot choose your truth and be understood by everyone at the same time. And you cannot grow into your full power and expect the world you're outgrowing to clap for it. This is the part of the journey no one prepares you for. The moment you stop being understood is the moment you start being free. Now I want to pause here, because there's something important I need to add and be clear about. It's actually a major topic all on its own that we will get into, but for now, this message I'm sharing, this entire journey of inner authority, identity, truth, self-respect, it is not for people who need to protect their ego more than they want truth. This isn't judgment. To be honest, it's sad, but I do want to be clear about it here for what we're talking about. There are people who use spiritual language not to heal, but to avoid healing. This is why the message of this video is not for people who need to protect their ego more than they want truth. This message is for you, the woman who actually does the work, the woman who self-examines, who takes accountability, who wants clarity, not spiritual bypassing, who grows even when it hurts, who tells the truth, even when it's hard, who chooses evolution over comfort. Inner authority isn't for people who want to look enlightened. So if you're here, listening, breathing through this, you're not the one avoiding your light. You're the one finally stepping into it. And that's why this message is for you. Tonight, we're exploring the power of being misunderstood, why it's painful, why it's necessary, why it's a rite of passage, and why the versions of you that survived your past will not survive your transformation. By the end of this hour, you'll stop apologizing for being different, and you'll stop believing that misunderstanding is a failure. It's not failure, it's evolution. Let's begin. Humans have two fundamental needs: to belong and to be authentic. When you're young, belonging wins. You'll shrink yourself just to be accepted. You'll mute your truth just to be included. You'll shapeshift just to avoid rejection. But as you grow, something shifts. You start craving the second need, authenticity. The problem? The people who loved the old you won't always love the real you. And the real you will confuse people who were only familiar with your mask. So when you evolve, you get misunderstood. And it hurts, not because they're right, but because you haven't fully anchored into your, what we're going to call, inner authority yet. When you aren't fully rooted in yourself, every misunderstanding feels like a threat. You fear, did I do something wrong? Am I changing too fast? Are they mad at me? Should I go back to how I was? But the truth is this: being misunderstood always appears right before a breakthrough. It's the space between who you were and who you're becoming. And almost no one will understand that shift except you. There are people in your life who were only comfortable with you because you lived below your potential. When you didn't have standards, when you didn't have boundaries, when you didn't have opinions, when you didn't have self-respect, they didn't love your essence, they loved your compliance. So when you rise, they don't say, "I'm proud of you." They say things like, "You're different now. You've changed. You're distant. You're too much lately. You're not the same person. Of course you're different. You're healing. You're awakening." But let me tell you something fundamental. People who need you to stay small will always misunderstand you. Not because you're wrong, but because your growth threatens their comfort, their ego, and sometimes their control. Misunderstanding is their defense mechanism. Your truth confronts them. Your boundaries expose them. Your clarity reveals them. Your evolution challenges them. So they protect themselves by reducing you. Their inability to understand you is not a sign you should stop growing. It's a sign you're outgrowing them. Bold women outgrow people quickly, not because they want to, but because they have to. When a woman begins to reclaim herself, her energy changes, her standards change, her language changes, her presence changes, her tolerance changes. She stops chasing, she stops fixing, she stops performing, she stops over-explaining. She stops accepting the bare minimum. She stops agreeing to things that drain her. This naturally creates friction with people who depended on her old patterns. Look at any woman who's truly evolved and you'll see what she left behind. Friendships that kept her small, relationships that fed on her silence, family dynamics built on guilt, workplaces built on her over-functioning. social circles built on conformity. Bold women outgrow these things because their soul won't allow it anymore. And here's the deeper truth. You outgrow people the moment you stop abandoning yourself, because self-abandonment is what kept those relationships alive. When you return to yourself, those connections cannot survive the light. And yes, you will be misunderstood. Often, loudly, incorrectly, repeatedly. But that's not your burden to carry, because the women who grow the fastest are always misunderstood the most. Let's go deeper. Why does misunderstanding happen? Psychologically, it comes from a few places, all of them rooted in someone else's internal world, not yours. Some people can only understand you through who they are. They interpret your words through their own insecurities, their own wounds, their own fears, their own unhealed parts. You may speak from clarity, but they hear you through distortion. And then there are the ones who feel threatened by your growth. When you rise, you shift the emotional balance. People who are comfortable being above you, emotionally, socially, mentally, don't want that hierarchy to change. So they say you changed, or call you different, or paint your evolution as selfish. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your growth disrupts the dynamic that once benefited them. There are also those who feel safest when everyone stays the same. Your evolution forces them to look at themselves. It makes them ask, why aren't I growing too? What is she doing that I've been too afraid to try? Why does her change make me uncomfortable? And instead of confronting that mirror, they misunderstand you. It protects their ego. And then there's the deepest layer, projection. People will project their unresolved stories onto you. You become the placeholder for their assumptions, their fears, their past wounds, their old betrayals, their childhood abandonment, and their unhealed insecurities. You become a character in their psychological drama, not a real person they're truly seeing. That's why you cannot hold yourself hostage to someone's interpretation of you. Their version of you doesn't live in truth. It lives inside their trauma, not your reality. There's a part of this journey that no one talks about. I like to call it the emotional detox of being misunderstood, because that's what it is. A detox, a clearing, a purge of every insecurity you still carry. Being misunderstood forces you to confront the places inside you where you still seek approval, where you still fear rejection, where you still crave being seen correctly. It detoxes you from people-pleasing, from emotional codependency, from the addiction to external validation. It gently removes from your life anyone who cannot walk with you into your next chapter. It reveals the relationships that were dependent on your silence. It exposes the people who only loved the performative version of you. It uncovers dynamics built on guilt, fear, and obligation. Misunderstanding isn't rejection, it's filtration. It's life saying, these connections were built on the version of you that didn't know her worth. You don't belong here anymore. And yes, it feels uncomfortable. It feels lonely. It feels destabilizing. Because something inside you is dying, the part that believed being understood was the same as being loved. And that brings you into the next stage, the detachment you must learn if you're ever going to live from your inner authority. To step into who you really are, you have to detach from one thing, the need to be understood. Because needing understanding is just needing permission in disguise. You will never be free if you need people to interpret you correctly. Detachment looks like this. You stop over-explaining. You stop defending. You stop rewriting yourself just to be palatable. You stop translating your soul into simpler language for people who have no intention of listening. You stop chasing closure. You stop clarifying your boundaries for those who never respected them anyway. You start saying less. You start observing more. You start trusting your intuition without entering a mental debate. You start valuing how you feel over how they might perceive you. Real detachment sounds like this. Your interpretation of me is not my responsibility. That one sentence can liberate your entire existence. And once you learn that detachment, you enter something extraordinary. The new identity that rises from it. The identity of becoming unmistakably yourself. Because being misunderstood is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your selfhood. When you stop needing to be understood, you stop performing. You stop shaping yourself for comfort. You start operating from a deeper internal truth. Your voice changes, quieter but grounded. Your choices change, less reactive, more intentional. Your energy changes, no longer loud, but absolutely commanding. Your presence changes, calm, but impossible to ignore. This is inner authority, not the kind of power that makes you feared. It's the kind that makes you undeniable. When you live from that place, people can misinterpret you and it doesn't shake you. People can question you and you stay rooted. People can leave and you remain whole. People can misunderstand you and you do not abandon yourself. This is the version of you who doesn't break under misinterpretation because she no longer seeks validation from those incapable of giving it. This is the woman who belongs deeply, fully, irrevocably to herself. And finally, there comes the moment when you stop apologizing for being different. This is the part most women never reach because no one ever told them the truth. Being misunderstood is not a problem to fix. It's a destiny to accept. People will misunderstand your boundaries because they benefited from the lack of them. People will misunderstand your standards because they've never met them before. People will misunderstand your identity shift because it exposes their stagnation. People will misunderstand your truth because it doesn't match the story they created. But none of this matters when you trust yourself. Misunderstanding is not rejection. It is the natural consequence of becoming who you actually are. And when you understand that, you stop apologizing for growing. You stop apologizing for evolving. You stop apologizing for choosing yourself. You stop apologizing for being different. You stop apologizing for being misunderstood. Instead, you become free. If you're ready for the next step in this series, the psychology of not abandoning yourself even when you're alone, subscribe. Your transformation is just beginning,